Okay, my friends, this is Yale University, and nobody understands quantum mechanics. They don't, and I'm going to show you. You'll see why I could say that with absolute certainty. This is my interpretation of what the nuclear core of hydrogen is. It's not one gigantic proton. It's 1,836 particles. 918 are positive, 918 are negative, and then there's a couple extra negatives. I'm going to go over all this, but first let's have this professor talk. And he's being honest. Now I'm not beating him up. I don't have a whole lot of respect for Yale for a bunch of reasons, but he's being honest. I like this guy. Here goes.
It's a very exciting day for me because today we're going to start quantum mechanics, and that's all we'll do till the end of the term. Now, I got bad news and good news. The bad news is that it's a subject that's kind of hard to follow intuitively, and the good news is that nobody can follow it intuitively. Richard Feynman, one of the big figures in physics, used to say no one understands quantum mechanics. So, in some sense, the pressure is off for you guys because I don't get it and you don't get it and Feynman doesn't get it. The point is, here's my goal. Right now, I am the only one who doesn't understand quantum mechanics. In about 7 days, all of you will be unable to understand quantum mechanics. Then you can go back and spread your ignorance everywhere else. That's the only legacy a teacher can want. So, all right, so that's the spirit in which we are doing this. I want you to think about this as a real adventure. Try to think beyond the exams and grades and everything. It's one of the biggest discoveries in physics, in science, and it's marvelous how people even figured out this is what's going on.
Well, they didn't figure out what's going on. And he won't contact me back, so I understand. They can't really talk. But here's the problem. They've got 345,000 views on this. And it's, they're not correct on the things they're saying. And they realize this, we don't know what we're talking about. We'll just tell them stuff and go out and tell other people the same stuff. It's not the way to do it. Not the way at all. And you're going to see, you will understand quantum mechanics in under 20 minutes. I guarantee you, if you don't understand it, I want you to tell me why you don't understand it. The only caveat is you probably have to be about 12 or above. I think maybe 10, but 12 and above, no problem whatsoever understanding this. This is the issue. Mathematics, you have to know addition before you can do Boolean algebra. Well, if you just jump past addition and go to Boolean algebra, you're not going to do too well. Physics, same thing. They don't even understand gravity. They're talking about wormholes, multiverses, and all this business. Light energy, they don't understand the atom, the nucleus, which you will, or probably do already, or if you've been watching Mudfossil University. But you have to understand the core of the nucleus. They don't understand it. Then everything will make sense. Health and biology, they don't even have any idea what's in your body for a healthy body. They don't know that. There's no database. So when you go in and you say, what's the matter with me? They say, I don't know, take some of this and see if you feel better. That's what happens. They should know what you're missing for enzymes and bacteria and metals and all of the different things that a human body is constructed of. We're doing things backwards, my friend. Everything's starting at that side, trying to get to this side. Start here, go that way, piece of cake. All right, I'm just going to let this run. This is a video I did a while back, and it just explains electron flooding. Here goes, and then I'll kick in here and there, maybe. Here goes. Okay, I'm going to explain to you what electron flooding is all about. If this was the core of the atom, which means the nucleus, and the nucleus is right in the center, and then you have all the electrons in their orbitals, which is called their quantum distances from the nucleus. I'm going to explain to you what is truly a nucleus is. It's a ball of particles. Okay? And that ball of particles, some of them are positive, some of them are negative. The total number, when it comes to resonance stability, is 1,836. So if there's 918 positives attracted to 918 negatives, boop, it just stays in a nice little ball. When you start to throw in extra of each one or the other, you end up with what's called isotopes, and they do nuclear radioactivity. They throw off particles because there's too many. They don't want them. They say, you're not supposed to be here. And he said, well, I want to stay here. He said, all right, you can hang around here, but no more. And then the rest of the guys kept coming in to get here, and they said, no, you got to stay in these orbitals. And I said, well, how many are we going to keep out there? He said, I don't know. How many extra ones you got in here? I said, we got 37. Well, then put 37 in the orbitals. Basically, that's it. Now, he is making a core. He's taking a positive, surrounding it by negatives. That's as close to approximation as this as you're ever going to get. This is, I think it's a snowball, what they used to call plum pudding core, which is both positives and negatives. And it has to be, because when you break them up, you get a bazillion little tiny bits and pieces. And if it was just one big chunk, anyway. So here he goes, and you'll see quantum mechanics in front of your face. Watch this. This is very cool. Boom. Now, it'll stay there, and that's what happens in electrons in association to their nucleuses. They stay in exactly a distance, exactly. Now, when other electrons come flooding in and forcing them and bouncing and pushing them and so forth, when you get a lot of frequencies and vibrations and friction and so, then you get heat and you get stimulation and you get what you can see right now. Right now it's just nice. He's sitting around having a nice time. It's a cool day. Everybody just chilling. All of a sudden, somebody turns on the heat, or the sun starts beating down on you, or the electricity comes into a pan, or a light bulb starts to turn on. And in the electronic world, it takes forever to flood. But in our world, you have no clue how fast it is. Boom, boom, there you go. That's light. All right, what we do is we live in a structure of positiveness flooded with negatives. And light is nothing more than back-to-back negatives. And when it concusses, it turns into 2 electrons. I'll show you that right now. I will get into this in extreme detail, but this is red laser light. This is accelerating laser light. Then it comes out of the venturi as plasma, and then they end up turning into electrons. These are literally electron fields. Now, how can I say that? Well, here's how I can say it. Because when they came through here, we would never see these fields unless they were accelerated. When they come out, they are accelerated, and then they settle down into their back-to-back electron nature. All right, they are nothing more at this point. When they came through as all bits and pieces. When they started out, they were like this. That's the electron, that's the photon, is back-to-back electrons. You see positive, negative, they're stuck this way, stuck this way, stuck this way, and stuck that way. That is a box of magnets. When it went through that venturi, all right, pay attention now. That was the light right here. Then we accelerated it because it had to accelerate to get through the venturi. This is not a mystery. And it's coming through this way, pushing everybody out of the way because it owns a field around it, just like these do. They have magnetic lines around them. As it comes through, it pushes everybody out. That created this. Then it had to increase its speed to go through the venturi, and it was going too fast to have the other ones react. They're trying to catch up. They can't. It outran them. And then it shows itself as the particle that it is, and it starts to concuss like hell against all of its neighbors who also own big basketball regions like this. Now they are fighting each other because their fields are forcing against each other. Now they turn into plasma. They're doing all this like crazy inside here. They come out the other side, as spits of particles, and then they reattach for a second, and then they slam back into the atmosphere, and they show up as these Higgs fields. What you want to remember is, at this point, they are displaying as particles, concussing everything, is glowing now. They are in disarray and going crazy because they are forcing against each other. They're just like exploding into this orifice that is forcing all these balls to concuss with each other's regions. It's nothing more than a particle crusher. Identical to what CERN does, only we do it sideways. They go head on with 8,000 times bigger than this. Well, once it creates its own particles and they're all spinning in a plasma, they want to be together. An electron will always want to fuse with something else. And when they hit the air and water molecules primarily, that's when they accept them and turn into electrons. And at that point they become the soup that we live in, the electron soup. And I'll show you, because I had a guy, Renz over there in Polynesia, has a picture of it. Alright, so Renz is outside, he's looking up, taking pictures of the sun. You see this? The sun light is concussing with the water molecules, which is H2O. It's a highly polar molecule, and they give off Higgs fields. Now those Higgs fields are, I mean, you can see them. They're the identical same fields. So don't tell me those are just some screen flash things. Those are the same fields, and they're given off by particles that are coming from the sun, and the sunlight is particles, and they are dark energy because they're coming from the sun. They're particles. They're these things right here, zzz, going through space. They hit a water molecule, and they go boom. One of these apparently sticks to the water molecule or gets in the soup of that, and the other one goes flying off. And as it's spinning like this, it's spinning, creating these fields around it. And we've got a picture of that too. You see, here's the exact same thing. It comes out of the accelerator in that blurriness, and then it does something, and then it settles down to two little brightest looking particles that I believe are this. Nothing more than what this is pushing. It's got to go like that. Right? These are those. So when it came out of here, they're coming out sort of globby, and now they're sort of fitting back together, and boom, they slap together. And then at that point they spin, and then they start to slow down, and then eventually they concuss. That's when you get those polar fields. And I'll show you those polar fields right now. And there they are. Those are the polar fields that come out from the Venturi towards us. These little spits of things are highly accelerated particles. They're too accelerated to make an impact in the atmosphere. Nobody even knows they were there. That's what's called a boson. And it's a charged particle. It spins, and it's carrying a charge, so anything around it reacts to that charge, anything that's polar, and water molecules are everywhere. And it goes around, and it follows it as it goes. It's like a dinner plate on the end of a pole going straight up through the air. And these are the reactions of the spinning polar particle, plus minus, plus minus, plus minus, plus minus, reacting to the number of molecules that surround it, or actually, yeah, I guess they're molecules that surround it, and to that pulse. It's like those are the magnetic fields we're actually visualizing in space. Because if you know it or not, when a wire has electricity runs in a wire, there's a field around there. There's a magnetic field around there. Anytime electricity flows, it creates a field. It's called a right-hand rule. All right? If you are flowing electricity that way, the spin is this way. All right? They're coming out this way, the spin is that way. All right? That's the right-hand rule. If they were going this way, the spin would be this way. All right? That one, I think, is coming this way, and the spin is that way. It's backwards, and instead of spinning and throwing the particles away from itself, it is gathering them into itself as it goes. It's going backwards and it's gathering instead of spitting out. That's the point. And I think it could be antimatter. I don't see why it couldn't be antimatter. It came through the accelerator as the same particles that all these were, I'm pretty sure. I mean, why would it be different? It came from the same light. And it's got a hell of a lot of power because it's taking its power in instead of feeding it out. And then it created something that was very strange. And that's the strangeness. That's the particle. It has a structure to it. It's creating a new structure of some sort, and then it gave off this little particle. In my world, that Higgs field surrounds an electron. Right? That is the polarized field surrounding a single electron in there. That is the same for that electron. Now, whatever happened here, I don't know. But that was, at one time, I believe, the same kind of particle that was, only spinning backwards. So is this antimatter combining with matter, doing a whatever thing it does when antimatter I don't know what it is. I'm just saying. It looks like it's the opposite of what that was. To me, if it was the same particle and everything else about it is opposite, that's antimatter. Okay, my friends, we're going to talk about something called a nuclear binding energy, which does not exist. Now, the scientists had to throw it in there because they could not account for hydrogen. I always start at the most basic part, and I find the answer to that. Then I go forward. They found they couldn't answer it, so they made something up. Now, here's what they did. They came up with neutrons and protons and all these different particles where there's supposed to be what's called one atomic mass, which is 1/12 of a carbon atom. Well, it doesn't come out right. If you divided it, and they know this, they realize this, it divides out to be, instead of 1, when you have 12, it ends up, the total is 12.0957. It should have been 12 even, if their theory was correct. Their theory is wrong. Everything has extra electrons because it has to be negative. So what they did was they came up with this number, and they said, oh, well, this extra part here that's not supposed to be here, we'll call that the binding energy. The binding energy, what the hell is that? Well, it's not supposed to be there, so it must be there. So it must be involved in holding that electron in place. Absolute nonsense. Because they don't understand the core. The core is not one big gigantic chunk. You see this? This is why they had to do it. Because hydrogen weighs that. It doesn't weigh just one. It's supposed to. Hydrogen is one proton, one electron. Electrons they don't even care about. They think they're so small, which they're not. They are 0.000545 approximately. However, I don't care about that right now. Because they really don't weigh enough to count in this amount of weight. So they said, well, hydrogen weighs this. Well, so what are we going to do? Well, we'll just throw in an extra 7975 as binding energy. Who the hell knows? Just tell them that's it, and we'll just go on from there. So going on from there means they are lost. Absolutely, totally lost. No idea what they are doing because nothing will ever, ever, ever work. Because this, my friends, is the absolute truth of what we have for electrons, protons, electrons and positrons. There is no neutrons. A positron has a plus charge of 1. It is an upspin. It goes away from the Earth. For some reason, this is hard to explain right now. It's a 1 electron volt plus, and it weighs this 0.005447. I've calculated it out to be that way, and I'm sure I'm correct. Now, an electron is a negative. It's a downspin. It tries to hit the Earth. All electricity goes right to Earth. Every electron. Bzzz, and I'm telling you that Positrons don't. They go away from Earth. And how can I say that, Roger? Well, here's how I can say it, Roger, is because hydrogen goes away from Earth. And you say, well, what does that mean? Well, it goes away from Earth because it does not have enough negative electrons to get sucked to the positive Earth. It has too much positiveness, and it goes away from Earth. Same thing with helium. Then when you get up to lithium and so forth, they start to come to Earth. The heavier they are, the heavier they are. Because they have more electrons, because they're being sucked harder against the Earth. Case closed on that. It's nothing more than electronic attraction. And it's only excess electrons. The more excess electrons, the more suction to the Earth. Now, there's 1,836 bits of every single, what you would call a proton. It's a stable ball. And here it is right here. You take this and you put it in a ball of 1,836 bits. It will become stable. But half of them will be negative particles. They will have a negative propensity. They will try to spin towards the Earth. The other half will try to spin away. When you max them together, they start to become matter and mass, and they will go to Earth if there's extra electrons. And there's always extra electrons, except light and electricity and lightning and all of the things that are excess electrons. And that's about it. Everything else has extra electrons, but not enough to just slam to Earth like those do. So what do we have here? We have half 918 of positive, 918 of negative. When they come together, that makes a proton. Now, here's the key. Why are these numbers? Why is 918, 919? What's all this business about? 918 and 918 makes 1836. 1836 makes one proton. That's how many, if you take 1 divided by 1836, you end up with this mass, which is a mass of an electron. Okay? That's the mass of an electron. So an electron and a positron are the same. Just one's up and one's down. One's positive, one's negative. They add together in the core, and then when you get to your neutron, you add one extra electron. All right, let's just cut to the chase. Hydrogen in the current model has one tiny little electron and one gigantic proton. That's it. And it weighs more than it's supposed to, so they threw in that extra amount. Now, the actual truth is this is what's in the core. It's not one gigantic plus. It's half and half and extra negatives. Now, how many extra negatives? A couple, a few. And they always end up keeping a negative exterior to the core. So that electron can never hit there, just like I showed you in the toy. So this is the electron flood model. Always net negative cores. And in anything, every single one of them has a net negative core. Now, this is the only way that you can account for the isotopes and all the different variations of every different element. These elements are not locked in just one thing. There's a ton of different variation to them. Lanthanum, I think, has 38 different isotopes. That means little bits and pieces of extra that fall off here and there. That's what it's all about. Alright, I don't know if I've made the claim in this particular video that these particles are identical to the same thing that CERN does. Only ours are a little more elegantly shown, and we are using light, which gives us a very small number of particles compared to CERN. Our particles are two smashing into each other in here in vast quantities, coming out in these small amounts compared to CERN. CERN is taking particles 8,000 times bigger than ours, smashing them head on, and just go everywhere. We're controlling our crushing, and we're controlling it with light. Light is a different particle than what CERN has. CERN has chunks, big chunks. They get some light too, and electrons like we do. These are electrons. That's the light. That's light coming back together, the two little bits and pieces, gluing back together, and then they smash into the atmosphere. They glow. And when they glow, they emit their electrons, just like I showed you before, the picture that Renz took in Polynesia. And this is the particle spinning to the right, Expanded here means it's fast. Contracting here means it's compressing as it's slowing down. Now, these are primarily the cones that CERN is working with, the big chunks. We're working with what they call electron showers. You saw them. This is pretty obvious what I showed. They are electron showers, exactly like they're portraying. And this is CERN. Now, I said they have 8,000 times bigger. They're smashing them head on. We're crushing ours into a funnel and watching them come out facing at us. These are just going everywhere, so they're looking around for them. They're seeing these circles and things, and then they're seeing all these little bitty particles. You see them? These are what ours are. These little tiny dots. Those are ours. See the white ones there? The other ones, the blue ones and the red ones, those are chunks. Those are chunks of these. All right? We are working with these little white ones, so we're working with these. They're working with this. And some of this. And some of that. And occasionally some of the white bits that we are looking at, which is the final product of all of this degradation is electrons. And that's what we see there. I'm going to leave it at that. Mudfossil University, stay here. We're going to go through everything, because everything needs to be going through. If they don't understand what even these particles are, and they do not, and they don't understand what rocks are, and they do not, and they don't understand what the human body is constructed of and health is, and they do not. And there's a lot of they do nots. So we're going to do all the they do's. We're going to figure out how to get around this mess, because they're never going to turn around. All right? Trust me.